Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Greg Bauer, strategist and fellow at HITLAB. I'm actually filling in for Stan, who has been called away at the last minute. I'm here today to kick off our brand new webinar series. It's entitled Best Practices with Applied Technologies in Clinical Trials. And we've been seeing so much innovation in the way of digital health technology that we felt that it would be important to have an examination of that and its impact on trials, as well as the ability of practitioners to incorporate it into their overall as solutions into their overall trial management. So we're gonna do this kickoff today, and then right now we have a total of 3 sessions, webinars. And as a 3-part series, it will really design to engage audiences in the different facets of application of technology. And today we're going to focus in on the patient engagement piece, which is crucial to the success of a trial. And we're happy to have 2 leaders in the clinical trial space. First, we have Divya Yerraguntla. She is a Senior Vice President, Demand Creation and Sales Enablement at Syneos Health. And we've got Joanne Watters, Managing Director, Customer Relations at Information Mediary Corp, otherwise known as IMC. And then I'm, as I mentioned, I'm a strategist at the lab and working with this fine group here. Sort of to set the stage a little bit, and before we actually have Divya and Joanne speak to their backgrounds and their companies, I thought that what we could speak to here is the digital technologies and data have significantly impacted patient engagement in trials, offering exciting new opportunities to reshape aspects of enrollment, engagement, and personal value. These advancements have led to 4 primary areas of change: promoting accelerated paths and increased participation by participants in these trials. And yet, how do we enhance and integrate these new solutions that are in the marketplace in this? And so if we think of it as a journey where we examine the needs of a trial manager, along with concerning the access to data and its use with reporting, analytics, AI, and so on, that's kind of where we're going. We know that clean and accurate data inputted to algorithms makes AI more effective, but how do we ensure that we have more accurate data? And how does the role of patient engagement shape the value of the data that we capture? Those are the questions that we're going to explore today. And so with that, I'm going to first ask Divya if you would like to just provide some background on Syneos Health and what you've been doing.
Thank you, Greg. So my name is Divya Yerraguntla. Thanks for having me here today. I am the Senior Vice President at Syneos Health. Syneos Health is a leading fully integrated biopharmaceutical solutions organization. To really accelerate our customer success, we specialize in translating unique clinical, medical affairs, and commercial insights into outcomes for our customers and to address the modern market realities. Personally, I've been in the pharma industry for about 23 years, various roles in across 7 markets globally. But thank you for having me.
That's great. Thank you. And you were breaking up a little bit there, so I've turned off my video. Hopefully that'll help with the transmission. So Joanne, why don't you talk a little bit more about IMC and what you've been doing there?
Hi, Greg. Hi, Divya. Thanks as well for being here. I'm Joanne Watters, and I've been working in health tech. Well, actually, I've been working in technology, innovative technologies for well over 3 decades. And for the last 18 years, I've been working with Information Mediary Corporation for who IMC is a corporation that has been providing digital solutions to help medicine, to help track medicine throughout the supply chain and understand how patients take medicine, and using that data to enhance the patient experience, but also to bring validity for drug efficacy and ensure that the trial data is as real world as it should be. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you both very much for that. And actually, before we get into the first question, we have 2 poll questions we're going to ask the group because we like to engage everybody in this process. And so we're going to ask everybody to take a moment and just fill out the answers. The first question is, how does patient engagement improve outcomes in clinical trials? Check all that apply. We have improved patient adherence to the trial protocol. We have real-time, near real-time data capture, more reliable data producing better algorithms, and finally, enables better informed decisions among the clinical trial team. And then the second question to that is what are your biggest hurdles to implement technology to achieve stronger patient engagement levels? Check all that apply. So let's just take a moment and give everybody a chance to fill in those, take a look at the answers and see if we level set ourselves against what the audience thinks is happening here, and then compare that with how Divya and Joanne have seen this work. Let's see here. Oh. So see, it says Joanne and Divya, we're not allowed to vote. So that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to be relying here on our crack crew for what I can see. I don't know how long it takes Ansley to pull the data. My understanding is we've got about 200 people registered for today, so it's a good turnout. Let's see. So interesting. It's really an even split by and large around the benefits, and then the barriers. Yeah, look at that knowledge of available technology. That is something I think, Joanne, you probably experience a fair amount of too, in terms of trying to get the message out.
Yes.
And then the lack of understanding of cost seems to be the lowest piece, but we will obviously talk about it as you have your questions and your discussion points. But I think that's an interesting array here of information. So before why don't we just go to the first question with that as a caveat or as a background. And Joanne, the first one goes to you first, and then Divya will follow up. And that is, what is your perspective on the ways that digital technologies reframe patient engagement in clinical trials?
Well, first of all, reframe is quite the word, and that's an appropriate choice of a word, because what happens is as digital technologies have evolved, we can actually take these technologies into the home of the patient, right? So we can have them have a wearable, we can have them use, some smart packaging that will help them understand how to take their medicines. We will, offer them mobile apps that can query them to see how they're feeling. And if there's any adverse events that the team should know about to help with the patient and improve and actually track their health outcomes. So reframing the whole experience. So a lot of the trials today are what they call, decentralized trial design. So it's a hybrid model. So in the olden days, patients had to come to a clinic somewhere. So that's a lot of a patient burden. And that actually would make a patient think, wow, do I really want to enter into a trial when I've got kids at home or the husband's away or whatever the circumstance, and they have to travel through traffic and get 2 hours to a clinic. So this way, it's all about what they call now patient centricity, and they're putting the patient at the top of what the trial is all about. And again, going back, and you see these name changes over time. The most important part in a clinical trial is understanding if the patient's taking medicine correctly, right? So back in the olden days, they used to call that, is the patient compliant with the treatment protocol? So now compliancy seems to sort of be more towards like a regulatory aspect. And so now we use the word adherent, right? So a patient at home can, now know that whether they're adherent to the protocol treatment, and they can actually engage a little bit better to keep track of medicine and that sort of thing. And you can use digital technologies to push data to a central area where the team can see how they're doing for their own patient reported outcomes. So it really is really beneficial to the patient. So they can stay at home longer. They can actually use telemedicine and all these things. So the reframing is now the important part, where instead of being a subject in a clinical trial, they are the patient, and it's patient centricity, which we're all excited about because it brings empowerment to a patient and they feel good.
That's great. And when we talk about consumerism in healthcare, this is just one angle that we're kind of working at, trying to meet the patient where he or she is. And of course, since we've had the FDA expand its regulations around trials, getting to more populations that are maybe previously difficult to reach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Divya, how about you? How Syneos has seen this experience with reframing the engagement?
So, as Joanne rightly put it, it's all about meeting the patient where they are right now with everything that's happening, right? The advancements that we have seen really impact us in 4 primary areas of change, promoting, accelerated paths and increased participation. First is really greater decision confidence with all of the personalized data and the technologies that we engage. There is a lot of sharing of trial information now, even before the patient gets enrolled in a trial, sharing the information with the patient cohorts, identifying the right doctors who are treating the relevant patients so we can find the patients faster, get them enrolled faster, and really enroll the right sites that actually have the patients who want to be part of these trials. And then again, empowering those conversations between patients and their trusted doctors to really enhance that decision-making process. What is required for the trial? How is it going to benefit the patient? And what's the projected outcome from that? We talked a little bit about the whole recruitment and enrollment process, right? I think it really helps simplify the entire process. For example, the e-consent, right? Basic stuff, but really it really streamlines the process of informed consent and also ongoing understanding of what's expected from you. Simple things like short codes, QR tags, really help us simplify the engagement and guide patients through the pre-screening process, which again is so essential to make sure that we're screening the right patients for the trials. And I think from another perspective, it's really sustainability of the participation, which is again another crucial thing. Like, how do we keep the patients within the trial? Because you don't want to recruit all these great patients, start the trial, and then they have to drop off. So really understanding data-driven investment, whether it's transportation, the home care aspect, the remote tools, how do we really keep them in the long-term trial participation? And again, going back to that, patient centricity, addressing the patient needs, how does this fit in their work schedule? How is the caregiving going to work? Ensuring that healthcare is more compatible with their everyday life, part of their routine that keeps it going. And last but not the least, something you just mentioned, this whole FDA now emphasizes diversity in clinical population as it relates to race, gender, socioeconomic status. Even finding that, so designing that within the trials, you need to understand the technologies. So we tokenize a lot of the data, whether it's human, medical, to identify the doctors, the demographic groups, and then site selections, the way we would engage with them. So I think a lot of these things, whether it's telemedicine, whether it's wearable devices, social media, the electronic health records, I think they have really revolutionized how patient engagement is viewed, especially within clinical trials, by really looking at accessibility, convenience, and transparency, and really improving overall outcomes. So I think definitely a huge impact.
I would think too, Divya, that when you're looking at these trials, some of them go on for, 9 months to a year or multiple years. All of this is compounded because, if you've got to go replace your patients, I think something like we read that I think a third of a trial's expenses have to do with recruitment and retention and management of engagement of the patients so they adhere. And every time you have somebody fall off, you've got to go get somebody else. So it becomes very expensive, especially for those long trials.
Can I pipe in there for a sec?
Yeah.
Yeah. So elaborating a little bit more what Information Mediary does. So we provide for the last 2 decades, actually, an end-to-end platform that goes and monitors drug product from the moment it is packaged until it gets to a patient's home and a patient is using their medicine. So we use printed sensors and types of sensors that detect when as an example, when a pill bottle is open, we'll know that. And these are smart pill bottles. They've been around for, I think, 25 years. And also other technology, so we can track medicine. So what the real world data has shown from studies over these many years is that as per what Greg just said, is the longer the therapy, the persistence, which is where they should still continue the treatment, we see, and the data shows that literally there's a very stark drop off with adherence to the medication. And that can lead to, the patient falling off and out of the trial altogether, but it can also lead to serious adverse events for the actual patient. So this is real world data that shows the longer the trial does go on, this is where we need to really be mindful of increasing that engagement with the patient to make sure that this doesn't happen. And we got to get that before it gets too late. So this is why these types of technologies are so critical to ensuring success of a trial and completion success as well.
And, it's interesting too, because we often think about, did the patient take the medication? Well, if the patient didn't take the frequency as prescribed or the dosage as prescribed, if they forget one day and they double dose the next day, there's a toxicity factor. And of course, it's a whole hypothesis that the FDA is trying to get answers from the sponsor and the team about, is it 10 milligrams at work or is it 50 milligrams? And being as precise with that is as important as anything else. True, very much. So Divya, what about how Syneos Health envisions applying different means to enhance participant engagement? How do you go about that process to engage the participants?
Great question. So Syneos Health, at Syneos Health, we employ various strategies and digital technologies. Some of these include, remote monitoring, patient concierge services, direct study assessments, and we're really dedicated to providing high quality solutions, data insights, and tools. And the primary strategy is to focus on the needs of the patients, right? It's all about the patient first and the site that supports them, rather than starting with technology. So technology is really the enablement, but really the primary focus is always on the patient and the site. But a high-level overview of the virtual study design, operational execution, these can all be enhanced through engaging digital recruitment, e-consent, remote review, direct product shipping, some digital tools for treatment management. We work with wearable devices. We do the e-pro collections, telemedicine, of course, huge uptake in the past few years and continues to do really well. Notifications are some common tools, that we discussed with the sponsors and the partners on how to keep everybody engaged and the study on track. To ensure success, it's really important to understand the patient perspective and focus on a few key factors, such as if we are doing decentralized trials, what's that infrastructure? How will the process go? What tools will be used? What templates? What will be the standard operating procedures? The data flow and interoperability, how will we integrate the data, and what is the security, because that's of key importance. Then again, oversight analytics, how will we operationalize? How will the patient data activities be captured? How would they be stored? How would they be reviewed? And on top of that, I guess the regulatory intelligence, right? Country level DCT limitations. Not every country is the same. Every country has their own regulatory authorities, their own compliance guidelines. So we kind of have to be very cognizant on how that's implemented. And then also ensure that the study design is accounting for those nuances. So when we start looking at which countries would participate, all of that needs to be considered to make sure we provide the high quality solution that we need for each of our trials.
So you just said something really interesting that we had all been talking about a number of weeks ago with IMC and also among the lab team, and that is how to design technology into the trial design, how to imbue it up front, way up front, when the trial design is actually being laid out. And when you're talking about different countries, different regions, different access to different levels of internet connectivity and so on, how does that play out for you? How do you go about doing that?
So again, we have global teams across. We operate in more than 110 countries. So we do have a lot of expertise within our teams on how each of the regulatory authority works, what are the restrictions. We also have a separate business unit, which is the tech and data business unit, which helps us a lot figure out at the strategy level on what technologies, the availability of data, the quality of data, what kind of tools. We also have very customer-centric strategists who can talk to what the patient preferences, what the patient journeys are in each of these major markets, and how we can really fit into that model. Rather than trying to fit the patients into the model, we try to look at what the patients are comfortable with, what's available at the country level, and then try to fit our model to that. So it's going back to that patient centricity. What does the patient wants to work with? What can they do? What the country allows? And then we kind of work with that parameter.
That's very interesting. And I can imagine pan-regional considerations become very important as you look at all those different groups. Joanne, how about IMC? How do you all look at this question about different means of engaging patients in the trials?
Yeah. So when it comes to how do we learn where we fit in as a company, right? So when there's many different aspects of what it is that we do and how does it impact each stakeholder along the supply chain, right? So when you're looking at a trial design, whether you're a clinical supply manager, whether you are the QA, the quality assurance person, all of these teams have a touch point when it comes to understanding how smart packaging solutions can actually benefit that trial design. So in a trial design, as an example, if you are a supply and you are an IRT, or you are a randomized trial supply manager team, and you want to know where your drug is at all times. So what they do is they look at where is the problem within that supply chain that they don't have the visibility of that critical drug component, right? The investigational medicinal product. Like, what stage is that at? Where did the drug go once it was packaged? Is it sitting at a clinic site? There's always concern about expiry dates. So all of these things are actually can be benefited from intelligent packaging that actually knows all of those details. So as an example, a trial design can fill the black hole, which is when it gets to a patient's home, typically they would not have had insight as to how the patient's taking the medicine objectively. They would have maybe an electronic diary or a paper diary that they would have the patient fill it out. So if you're an example, if you're in a pain study and you've had, you have this chronic disease, or if you've had surgery in the other arm of it all, and you wake up at 3 a.m, you're like, oh, where's my diary? I gotta, check off that I took this pill at 3 a.m. More than likely, there's going to be a little bit of, recall bias or something there. What smart packaging can do is alleviate that burden for a patient, right? So a patient actually is like, oh, I don't need to record that because this thing is going to do it for me. This smart package, it just knows. So when you look at that sort of understanding where the problem is in the supply chain with that black hole of what's happening, you can use remote tools that the patient, let's say the next day when they wake up, they just tap it using a smartphone, and all of that data is pushed immediately to our cloud platform. And you have that instant visibility in the supply chain to know where that unique drug is. It's a de-identified number. And what is it called? Avalanches a whole bunch of stuff for resupply, for understanding if the patients are actually taking their medicine as they should, and also to better for patient engagement. So lots of different ways to look at the trial design, but yeah, it's amazing, really.
So you actually were just mentioning that whole example was really about remote monitoring. So what our next question had to do with remote monitoring being contemplated. And you all do it a fair amount, but maybe Divya, how does that get incorporated? You had mentioned telemedicine before. Is that part and parcel to your overall connectivity services?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So remote monitoring can take various forms, right? Like telemedicine platforms, wearable devices, or mobile apps, as Joanne just mentioned. These technologies offer numerous benefits. It has patient convenience on top, engagement for sure. Trial costs do come down with some of these technologies. And then the most important part is like the streamlined data collection, because just like Joanne just mentioned, it's not dependent on a patient trying to remember and then, log something. It's automatic. It's like our watches, Fitbits and smart watches. Like you work out, you automatically have all the data loaded in your health app. So
we're not lazy. We're not lazy.
I know. So at the end of the day, you don't have to consciously go and log something. It's already there. And that's a simple form. But then this is what can really help a trial, that compliance, that data, consistency of data. So that streamlined data collection, I think, is the most important part. And then I think it also helps, improve or lessen the burden on trial sites and the accuracy and efficiency, because everything is being captured at the point and it's accurately being captured. So it's less data cleaning efforts that you have to do later on. But one other important thing I would want to mention is, when we talk about telemedicine and other technologies, these are very easy for, some age groups, because we are in it, we are very conversant with what's happening around us. But there are some trends now coming up, like the age tech, which really focuses on designing technologies for older individuals. because they have unique needs, right? So they need to have technologies that fit in their lives and play different roles. For instance, while efficiency is essential for any middle-aged family person, because you're doing 100 things, when we deal with older patients, it's really the empathy which becomes critical, right? Because they might be living alone. So that perspective is very critical and vital in the clinical trial space. When you choose your tools, it's not just functionality, but it's also how it's going to fit in that person's life and what role it's going to play. So remote monitoring extremely important, but also understanding how that technology is going to be implemented and what technology also becomes extremely critical.
That's great. Very, very helpful to have both of your perspectives on that. We have about 15 more minutes before we wrap up. We said to folks, we're going to give everybody a chance to ask some questions. And I was just going to ask one more here about, and maybe we've kind of covered on it, but it's how technology affects productivity and efficiencies. And you were just kind of going through a little bit of that, Divya, but is there anything else that we didn't say yet that we could emphasize?
One thing I would say is, technology has really improved every industry. And we see this in our everyday lives, but I think especially in clinical trials, significant improvement. Like from Syneos Health, since we have adapted a lot of different solutions, we have seen significant increase in site activation, stabilization of non-enrollments. Low enrolling sites are doing much better than before. And we do see the industry standards kind of increasing, and more trials are surpassing enrollment targets wherever we have really used some innovative technology solutions, sometimes even basic solutions, but done the right way that fit the patient needs. So really, I think through innovative digital technologies and all of the data analytics, we have been able to optimize trial performance, boost patient engagement, and really expedite the drug development process to a certain extent. So I feel huge contribution from technology. And I think the last 2 years with COVID have really helped with the adoption. We're all more tech savvy. We can join the Zoom link without somebody helping us through, It's at that basic level, everybody, I think the tech savviness of an average person has gone up. And that really helps us in clinical trials as well, because we're all patients at some point, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I have a thought on that as well, Greg. So when we're, as she's mentioning, Divya's mentioning about, the last couple of years and how technologies have been, really just bursting out. We talk about, artificial intelligence and machine learning, et cetera. But one thing that when you get objective measurements, objective timestamps of when patients took medicines, those IDs of of the medicine per pill or a bottle opening, that objective measurement and timestamp and data is really, really beneficial to using AI, right? So it gives the power of the AI that much more robustness to better understand the data, but also to use that data, and it eliminates the time crunching of trying to figure out, from when I put that I did take it, but I didn't. This is objective data that really makes the algorithm that much more robust. We also can do, as these sort of smart tools are used, reconciliation is a huge problem, right, as well. So when they reconcile, I gave the patient 15 pills, but I don't know why. I got 10 back, and I don't know where those other 5 went, but whatever happened. So it does automatic real-time reconciliation and drug accountability for the investigational, for the principal investigator and the drug sponsor. So they know that type of benefit for that, right? So you're curing that. We can also, Divya mentioned, low site enrollment. So our platform, when it has all of this real-time objective data in it, we can do site-by-site comparisons that are automated and in real time, where it actually will say, so let's say site A wasn't actually, they're low on enrollment, and then it makes us ask more questions. So why is site A low on enrollment? but they have a high adherence rate maybe. So it triggers all kinds of very, very interesting aspects looking into why patients do what they do and how does that impact the trial. And it makes us think and better prepare for a next trial design. So these are the type of metrics and analytics that this type of objective adherence data can really bring to trial teams.
And Joanne mentioned something very interesting, and I would be
go ahead.
if I didn't comment on the AI aspect of it. You know, there are so many trials that used to take so long. Now with AI and the model, ML models, you can actually simulate, like just look at the COVID, right? We know there will be variants. You don't have to wait for the variant to come. You can simulate all kinds of variants that might come and start working on vaccines for them, which is something we did not have before. And I think AI has made that possible. You know, even if we look at in general patients, right? We talk a lot about digital twins, right? We can have digital twins for the patients to really start looking and simulating how a patient would behave, how the anatomy, physiology, how that is going to, react to a certain active pharmaceutical ingredient. So a lot of things that are more to come. So it's exciting times. We see so much more happening and so much more potential through AI that can happen.
Divya, should we even talk about Chat GPT? Let's not. Let's not.
That's a whole different webinar,
yeah,
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that would take us pretty far afield. And I know that there's a number of folks here who have questions. So I do want to quickly get to them. One question that Melissa asked was, has anyone created an app or a model specifically for access to FQHC entities or patients? So when we were talking before about access and patients in underserved areas or those that have, well, just less access to care and less access to resources, does FQHC, federally qualified healthcare centers, do they have any kind of segmentation for you at all? Does that come up?
It depends, right? It all depends on what trial, what therapeutic area, what kind of patients are we going after. So
Okay.
again, it depends on the site selection. If some of the sites are part of this FQHC or RHC programs, then yes. In terms of specific tools, whether somebody has developed an app or not, I am not aware, but I can go back and check because we work with a lot of different tools, but I'm not aware of a specific tool only done for FQHC centers, unless Joanne, you do.
I'm not familiar with FQ centers. I don't know what that is.
Well, my understanding of them is they're federally qualified healthcare facilities that administer primary care and other care to those who maybe don't have access to the funding for it.
Okay, so if here's an example, how I would sort of see that is they would receive medicine and they would have hopefully a smart package as an example. The moment they would download an app, because we have an app, we work with apps. So if that's all interoperable, as we'd call that, right? So if FQ had an app, we could work with them where their app would read our smart package. And so the app, as an example, can do gamification. It can show patients their scores, and that's all traceable through a system. So it would just be a linking basically of the FQ system and our platform to show how the data is and how patients are taking medicine. I don't know if that really answers the question.
No, that's
one thing I would add, I guess, Melissa, these are mostly, underserved populations, right? And not very economically forward, so they may not have smartphones.
Yeah.
Some of the trials where we actually are using technology and we have certain solutions that we go with, they go with their own device. So the patient is given our device, preloaded with all the apps that we're going to use, preloaded with, apps that can track their expense to get to the site and stuff like that. So when we give the preloaded device, that aspect of, they're not able to afford a smartphone or can't have the app because they don't have a phone, is a non-issue at that point. But again, it depends on the specific trial and what technologies the sponsor is willing to use, because that has to be something that the sponsor wants to do.
And the treatment population.
And the treatment population, yes.
Yeah. Another question Jitendra has raised is, what are the biggest challenges in digital health is data security and privacy. With recent health data breaches, what kind of thoughts do we have about how we make the patient comfortable in sharing data?
I'll jump on that one. So first of all, a smart package doesn't have the patient name on it. It's de-identified data. So as an example, if you have a 14-dose card, those are numbered, like numbers that will never make sense to anyone. So there's no pill that says Joanne's medication was taken at 4. That's all done offline, like any other type of system. So to make sure that, you know, you use a participant ID and enrollment number, and that enrollment number is linked to a unique identifier that comes from our system as well. So there's no patient information from our perspective.
Okay. And
Divya, I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Divya, what are any thoughts you have about data protection?
As Joanne mentioned, all of the patient data is de-identified and now even tokenized to certain level. So we don't see that as a big issue. But of course, everything goes through its security parameters. We have people looking at the data security aspects of it.
Yeah, and I will actually just mention that as well. So when a patient is at home, if they choose to use remote monitoring, the type of data transfer we use is the secure payment method that pretty well everyone has now experienced, called contactless payment. And it's close proximity and it's very secure. Banks use it, security badges use it. So again, that's another aspect of security.
That's great. Thank you both. Well, this wraps up the 45 minutes that goes by quick. Yes. Your comments have been just terrific. I'm getting some very nice feedback from folks saying that they learned a few things, which is great. And just to let everybody know, we have our next session. It's going to be with Mark Butler, assistant professor at the Institute of Health Science, System Science from Northwell Health. And that'll be on April 24th from 11 to 11:45. So we'll continue on with our series. And in the meantime, Divya, many thanks for your help and willingness to join us and share in some of this discussion today.
Thanks for having me.